listening to Out Late with David. True stories of coming out later in life. And now here's your host, David Cotton.
Hello. Welcome to Palm Springs, the city where it's never too late to come out. Today's coming out story has a happy ending. Actually, from beginning to end, it's all a good story. At age 59, when my guest came out to his wife and kids, he was met with love and acceptance. So much so, his wife helped him write his coming out post on Facebook. Today, Mark Dembo joins me from his home in New York City. Hello, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, David, great to be here today.
Let's set the stage. You were happily
Sure.
married, 2 grown kids. What kind of relationship did you have with your wife, and how long were you married?
So we were married almost 32 years. And, my wife and I have always been best friends, as I've said to her numerous times, and I still feel this to this day. She's always been my soulmate. There's probably nobody in the world that knows me as well as she does, and that I've ever been closer to.
Were you dating before you met her, though? Others?
That's a great question. When I look back and kind of think about that, there had been people I had dated, but nothing that I would say was ever a really serious relationship. You find yourself dating because it's what you're supposed to do and what's expected of you, but not in a serious relationship. And I figured, well, eventually I'll find that one, and that'll be, the rest of my life. And then I met my wife, and here we are, 30 some odd years later.
Did you believe you were straight at the time, or have any thoughts about your sexuality?
Again, great question. So, for me, and I think like so many others, like us who come out later in life, you spend your life doing what's expected, right? I grew up in upstate New York. I grew up in a Jewish household. I was the good boy. You're the one, you're going to go on and be successful and do all the right things and raise the family. And that gets ingrained in you. So, did I grow up being, believing I was straight? In hindsight, the things you start to see and to understand about yourself versus what you believe at the time can be very different. So I always told myself, "Oh no, you're straight. Oh yeah, maybe you thought that kid was attractive that you saw at the pool, or you thought he was hot or cute. It's like, oh no, but you like girls. And you convince yourself of that, and you go on and you do the things that are expected of you."
So when you looked in that mirror that day and said, "Dude, you're gay," how did that feel? And what brought you to that point to actually make that self-realization and pronouncement?
So it felt like a 10,000-pound weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Mm-hmm. I've talked to so many other guys, I think this is, kind of a lot of common themes, but, the way I describe it, I would often go through my life feeling like I was living somebody else's life, almost like I was watching my own life in a movie, kind of detached, but I never understood why. I was like, what is it? Is it, and I could never really put my finger on it. From the day I admitted to myself who I am, that feeling has, I can't say completely dissipated, but largely dissipated. I don't go through my life because now feeling that way, because now I know I'm living my life. Whereas before, it's like, am I living my life? I don't know. When will I know when my life begins? Right. What led me to that, I think, was the second part of your question there. Um, I've spent a lot of time pondering that with my therapist and kind of like, why suddenly, it's like, life wasn't so bad, I mean, again, I had a great relationship with my wife, wonderful kids. We were often looked upon as, the model couple. We were always great together. And I think, again, as I reflect on it, I think a number of things. Being, when I was 59, the thought of turning 60 starts, kind of looming in my head, and you start, thinking about your life, your legacy, your own mortality, combined with the fact I was dealing at the time with a number of things going on with my parents who are thankfully both still with us right now, but having more and more of their own health issues and really focusing a lot more on that. So, it was a lot of that, I'd say, kind of realization of my own mortality and taking stock of who am I and how much time do I have left? And am I living fully to who I am for whatever time I have left to be on this earth?
It struck me when you said 60, because you're not the first man I've heard talk about 60 as kind of a pivotal point, getting to mortality. And if I extend that, I know in my case, when I'm off the planet, I wanted the world to know who my authentic self really was. That I realized I was hiding for all those years. The mask that I had, that I tell people was 3.5 feet thick, and it's taken me years to peel off the mask. I didn't even have emotions, and now I have emotions like, ooh, these are interesting. How do we deal with these things that I suppressed all those years? I love my family and wife, but it's a different feeling.
Absolutely. That hiding, that hiding. And one of the things that I've realized, I talked about kind of that feeling of detachment. What I've also realized that I didn't realize then was how much energy I was spending hiding myself, hiding from the world who I was, and hiding it from myself. And that takes a lot of energy. And you know what, David? It's exhausting. And you don't realize it.
So you talked about taking that weight off of ourselves.
Yeah.
When we take that weight off, though, it also puts it on to others, like your wife. How did she react to your coming out when you transfer that weight to her?
Yeah. So the initial reaction, I sat her down one day and said, I really want to share something with you that I've come to understand about myself. She was initially in shock, really had no idea. And, again, initially went through, I think, a lot of what you'd expect. The shock, anger, hurt, all of the questioning of, why did you ever marry me? Has our whole life together been a lie? How do I even believe you that you say you're gay? But we very quickly, and I do have to say, I do consider myself, so very lucky in who she is as a person. Because even along with that hurt, with that anger, she never, well, she did at one point say, how do I even know you're gay? But aside from that, but even very quickly said, I accept you for who you are. But recognizing that, and I even said to her at the time, I recognize that, I'm basically taking a hand grenade and throwing it into our lives. You didn't ask for this. So as we, and luckily, and again, very thankfully, we found ourselves an excellent couples counselor. We found somebody near us locally here who is queer herself. She works with a lot of couples in our situation. So really been able to guide us. And I remember she said from the get-go, she said, first of all, she said, neither one of you are my client, my patient. It's the relationship. And I'm not here to tell you what to do either. She said, I'm here to help guide you through wherever you want to go. There's no rule book. And so she really helped us. Basically, she said to us, the one piece of advice I'll give you from day one is slow and steady. Don't make any immediate decisions. And so after kind of the initial shock of my coming out to her, we did go through a process because, again, we care deeply about each other. Is there a way for us to stay together? And we explored that. We tried that. And, at first, we went down the road of, she said, I can accept you for being gay, but do you think you could stay monogamous to me? And, we got into things about, well, what does that mean? And what's acceptable and what's not acceptable? It's like, well, okay, if you want to watch gay porn, I'm okay with that. If, you want to chat online with guys, I'm okay with that. But, quickly realized that wasn't going to work. We did, try and say, well, maybe there's a way to open the marriage. She didn't have any interest in that on her side. And I did, and I was out, seeing other guys, and, it proved to be challenging. And over time, we came to realize that because we do care so much about each other and want to maintain a relationship, and I'll come back to that in a second, because, this took some time on her end, but ultimately we realized the best way for us to actually preserve a relationship is to separate. And once we came to that recognition, our whole relationship changed, because suddenly there was no elephant in the room anymore. We've been able to adapt and adjust because of the care that we have for each other, and preserve what we can as we move forward. We know that, this isn't, basically what we've said is, this isn't the end of our relationship. It's about a new chapter that will look different. Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about the fact that, she's even said, I'm not there yet, but I can envision at some point, we're all at a family dinner, or we're at your place and I'm meeting, with your future partner, and we're all, together and having fun and enjoying each other's company. I'm hopeful that we'll get there.
Yeah, I can't imagine having that conversation to where you keep the friendship and relationship in a positive way. Too many times the opposite happens, to where the spouses, they separate, they go their separate ways, and that's kind of the end. I know I always tell folks, be patient if you want that relationship. As you said, go slow. The go slow might be you just need to wait and just represent yourself and be kind, caring, and compassionate. And maybe someday that door will open up again for that friendship that you desire, if you so desire it.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Sounds like you're on that path already.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of been our, our operating procedure from the get-go, right? It's like, how do we maintain that? I'm not going to lie and say it's been easy. We've all, all of us that have been through this, right? We all talk about the roller coaster. It has absolutely been a roller coaster. I mean, I can't count the number of days, going through this over the past, 18 months or so. I would just find myself in the car driving to the grocery store and just crying. Who knows, for whatever, just the raw emotions. I feel like, it's been, all these years of pent up emotions just coming out. And I think the hardest part of this, has been the guilt, and knowing even as, great as things can possibly be, in my relationships with my wife, there's still a lot of guilt, because she didn't ask for this. She didn't ask for any of this.
Yeah. As a life coach, I'm committed to help you discover the passions in your life and help you map a course to achieve the things you really want. Together, we will unwind those persistent self-doubts that are holding you back. You'll begin to see your passions more clearly and set achievable goals. Throughout your journey, I'll be there to challenge and encourage you in moving forward to discover your authentic self. For more information about my personal life coaching services or to arrange a complimentary consultation, visit davidcottoncoaching.com.
You're listening to Out Late with David.
So on that roller coaster, how did your kids handle the news when dad comes out as, hey dude, I'm gay?
Yeah. So they, when we told them, and I say we because this was, again, it was last March, and my wife and I were still trying to figure out, okay, how, is there a path for us to stay together? We were trying to work on that, and we said we're going to tell them together so that they see that mom and dad are not at war with each other. They could see that, their mother accepts me for who I am. And we've, and even then, when we were still trying to go through, is there a way to stay together, mixed orientation marriage? We always said from the get-go, look, we know there's no guarantee of where this is going to land. So we shared that, with the kids, and we sat them down, one day. We sat together on the couch. The kids were across from us, and I kind of led the conversation, but said very similar to what I had said to my wife. We want to. I've come to understand this about myself. It's something I've denied for most of my life. Again, I think the immediate reaction was a little bit of shock, but they both very quickly were, "Dad, we love you. We want you to be happy." And then it was, is mom okay? Is mom going to be okay? Yeah. And that has been, throughout, kind of really the theme for them is complete acceptance. One of my daughters came out to us a few years ago as being bi. And even that, then it was before I'd come out. Mm-hmm. We were like, okay. Congratulations. How can we support you? And we want you to be happy and live your true life. So the whole idea, of somebody being queer in the family is something that we've all been very comfortable with.
Did your daughters coming out as bi give you any strength or courage to recognize yourself as well?
I think to some extent it probably did. I don't know that I consciously, made that connection, but yeah, it probably did. I think so.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, learn from our children.
Yeah,
knowingly or unknowingly.
Exactly. So you talked absolutely.
You'd mentioned a few times about communities of like-minded individuals. What groups did you find and activities to engage? Because here you are in your house, make that acknowledgement, and you've got the family, and I go, what next? Where are the people that are like me that I can talk to and provide or get comfort and support in a community?
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's been a couple of groups that have really been instrumental, and I think you've talked about both of them on your podcast. One of them is a group called HOW, Husbands Out to Wives, which is a phenomenal group for men, again, coming out later in life, with a large focus there on, people who are trying to stay in their marriage, in a mixed orientation marriage. And that can look, a number of the guys that are in that group, it looks very different depending on who they are. And then the other group that has really been key for me is Gay Fathers Worldwide. In fact, I think I actually connected originally with Gay Fathers Worldwide when you had Sean on your podcast, and then I connected with the group, and very quickly in the Gay Fathers Worldwide group found what I felt like was my home. To put it, I'm gonna get a little emotional here because I think about the men that I've met and the friends that I've made where, again, for the first time in my life, really felt like these people get me. And just the bonds there. So I've made so many great friends in that group, both, many people around the world that I've never met in person,
Yeah.
but through the Facebook group, through chatting with them, phone calls, and then many that I've had the opportunity where we've been able to meet in person. Some, local to me, and others. We had a get together over the summer in Saugatuck, Michigan. We had about 30 gay dads together for the weekend, and it was magical, just to be with. Everybody's story is different, but we're all on similar paths, and there's just this common understanding and pure acceptance, and it's wonderful.
That's beautiful. And the power of that common community. And it's true, they are around the world, because Sean's from Australia.
Yeah,
he started
exactly.
He and I came out at the same time. He went his path, and I started doing this path. So, and now we intersect, which is like so wild. The universe is meant to be. So I'm picking up my iPad here, if I can, to open it up, because earlier this year on Facebook, you came out publicly with a post that I understand your wife helped you put together.
Yeah.
Others are always looking for ways to share their realization about themselves to friends and coworkers. What drove you to actually put it out so publicly on something like a social media platform like this?
That's a phenomenal question. And when I did first come out, I said from the get-go, I said I am not looking to hide who I am. I spent most of my life hiding, right? And it's like I'm not ashamed of who I am. We talk a lot about in the gay community, guilt and shame. I mean, there's certainly some shame, I think, but I've gotten past I don't feel shame about who I am. Again, the guilt has really loomed large, but I said, I'm not going to hide who I am. I did say at the time, that I was like, but I don't feel the need to go out and, shout it to the world or, post it on Facebook. But what I found as I shared with more and more people, with family, with friends, and once my wife and I did decide that we were separating and yet we were still on great terms, and really aiming to keep our relationship, that I did want the rest of the world to know, because for a number of reasons, it's who I am. It's like, I want people to know who I am, in my full persona, right? So more and more, I just felt that pull, and I've also felt more and more of a pull to want to do whatever I can for other guys, other men that are, going through similar things, to be a voice, whether it's, men coming out later in life, or whether it's, kids trying to figure out how do they come out. I was like, you know what? I'm lucky at a point in my life where whatever I can do to help and to be a voice in that community, I want to do that. And I just felt the timing was right for me to kind of do that. But at the same time, again, while we've been we've shared with family, with friends, I got to a point where it's like, everybody in my life that is important, I'm out to. Same for my wife. She's been able to form, from her friends, great support group. And before I, did go and post that, I said to her, I'm thinking about this. I want to make sure you're okay with it. And I showed her what I was, going to write. And yeah, she felt very comfortable with it. Her biggest concern was not so much about people finding out. She's like, I just need to be prepared, because there's going to be people that are going to read this that are going to reach out to me. And she's like, and that's exhausting for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, having to explain the story, but ultimately, no, she was very supportive of it. And as I said, even gave me a little bit of input into, what I actually posted.
It's beautiful that you involved her. It really goes to show how much you really want to keep that relationship with her. You wanted
Yeah.
her to be engaged and show that you didn't want to do further, I say further harm, because we already acknowledge that by coming out, we harm, even though we don't mean it. So from the post, is there some piece that resonates with you more than others that you'd like to share for others, or the whole post if you so choose?
Yeah, I'm happy to share, what this is. And, the other thing for me, I'll say, there's been a few other things that I've posted. I also, not quite as much on a personal level as this that I'll share here in just a moment. I made a similar post on LinkedIn and came out to the professional world. And, again, because I said, you know what, this is who I am. I don't want to hide. And, it's been the feeling of being able to do that and be completely open and out has been extremely liberating. It really has felt wonderful to be able to do that. So yeah, I wrote this post. It was just before Thanksgiving, and I used it as a chance to reflect. So I said, as Thanksgiving approaches, I've been reflecting on the past year, a year of growth, transformation, and stepping fully into my truth. This past year, I came out as a gay man. For some of you, this may be new news, and I wanted to share it here as part of my journey. I talked about Wicked because everybody was going to see the Wicked movie, and it did really strike me. I said I can't help but think about how much of my journey feels like Elphaba's learning to defy gravity and embrace the parts of myself that I once felt I had to hide. Like her, this journey's been about stepping more fully into who I am, shining light on a big part of myself I kept hidden from the world and for far too long from myself. It's a process that requires courage, vulnerability, and most importantly, the love and support of those around you. And what I really wanted to emphasize here is the fact that this has been a journey, and I've been, lucky and grateful to have the support. And I said, to my family, I thank you for standing by me with unconditional love and understanding. You've reminded me that no matter what, I'm never alone. To my kids, you're my everything. Your love, acceptance, and joy light up my world. And I'm endlessly proud to be your dad. To my wife, your compassion and unwavering support are my anchor. While our bond will be different as we move forward, I know it will continue to grow in new and meaningful ways. You're my best friend and soulmate, and I'm so grateful to walk this journey with your love and encouragement. The other point is that I made here is that this journey has been one of self-discovery, and it's not always easy. But for me, people have asked, well, do you ever regret it? And there's probably been moments where we all like, why did I do this? Why am I blowing up my life? But I don't regret it, and learning about ourselves isn't always easy. But it's worth it.
And again, the fact that you involved your wife, how important was it for you to share your gratitude for her publicly?
Oh, tremendously. Tremendously. For a host of reasons. One, because as crazy as it sounds, I don't know that I could have done this and be where I am without her. And that sounds so contradictory, right? And, we've even said it, that, we recognize that, it seems like a contradiction for us to say, well, the way for us to maintain a relationship is to separate. Granted, we know that relationship's going to look different. It's going to be different. But we knew that if we tried to stay together, she can't live her life. I can't live my life. You're constantly, living in a state of uncertainty, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Am I going to come home and say I've met somebody? And I'm, it's like, get rid of that.
Right.
and she has reminded me so often when I've been feeling at my lowest and guilty. She'll come to me, she's like, you didn't choose this. You have nothing to feel guilty for. She's been the one that's reminded me of that. I had a conversation 2 weeks ago with my oldest daughter. She said that to me. My daughter said that to me.
You are so fortunate to be surrounded by such love and support. I think you have what many men like you desire. Very fortunate.
And I don't lose sight of that. I recognize, I know not everybody, has been able to have that. I've been very fortunate in that.
So what do you think allowed this to happen for you, to have that other men could learn from your experience or emulate you as they go forward on their journey?
I think I'll come back to what I said, before, and kind of the advice that our couples therapist had given us, and that was kind of the take things slowly. Don't, even if you come out to your spouse, there's going to be anger, there's going to be hurt, it's going to be difficult. Allow for that. Like recognizing, it could be really easy to dig in or to respond, or, and there were times where, I would have to consciously say to myself, look, I'm not gonna get defensive. I need to allow her and others to have the emotions. They're legitimate emotions. Mm-hmm. And to just, sometimes you gotta be in that difficult place, right? And again, one of the things I've realized and said to myself, many times over this past period, if I look back at where I am today, where my life was a year ago or 18 months ago, it's been the most difficult time of my life, mm-hmm. but also the most fulfilling. But you have to go through that difficult time. So I think it's recognizing there's going to be those ups and downs. And again, David, as you said, look, I recognize I've been very lucky. But I think, you can find that path. And I think the other thing is, for all of us as men coming out later in life, you got to remind yourself, number one, you don't have anything to be guilty of. Mm. We didn't choose to be gay, but by the same token, once I recognized and admitted to myself, I was like, you know what? Okay, maybe I didn't choose this, but I'm going to embrace it because it is who I am. Mm-hmm. So I can't fight that. And it's okay. It's okay to advocate for yourself.
So I want to honor your courage and your story, and thank you very much for sharing that today. As we know, this will help others that hear this. They'll have an example, and they know that they will not be alone. So Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate your time today.
That was my pleasure.
Coming out later in life can be a very unique kind of coming out. When marriage and children are involved, it's not something that's done alone. It affects the lives of others. It can be especially hard on a spouse who may feel cheated or lied to. Mark's story may be rare, but it shows that a strong and loving relationship can survive anything. It takes a special kind of compassion to care more about the mental health of your closeted spouse than keeping a traditional marriage intact. And while his new life may not be exactly what he once expected it to be, Mark's loving family is responsible for making it the best life possible. We wish him all the best of luck. Thanks for listening. I'm David Cotton. Join us next time for Out Late with David.
To hear more episodes, visit outlatewithdavid.com. And to learn more about personal life coaching services, go to davidcottoncoaching.com.